What's up, gamers? And Prydwen has put out their tier list on Zenless Zone 0, or I guess they did like a week ago, but I'm just now getting to it, okay? But they have done a lot of major changes with this tier list, namely adding in M6 characters for the A rank characters, right, guys? That's the biggest thing that they've done. They have added in, or I guess factored in what these characters can do at M6 and given them new rankings based off of that. So that's going to be really huge to actually go through and rank. And then, of course, they have Burnice added into the game too. So there is a bunch of stuff we're going to talk about. Juyan and Ellen have eyeballs next to them. We're going to see what that means. But first, guys, let's go ahead and start off with the left-hand side of this tier list, our supports. Okay, guys? Absolutely 100% agree. I do think that Caesar King stands above the rest. I mean, hell, she just like basically prevents any damage coming into you for like the most part, right? And then she provides a pretty fat buff on top of that, and she is really good at breaking enemy shield all around. Really good. She's a hybrid stun buff, debuff shield. She just does it all, guys. She deserves to be in this spot 100%. Now, there is something that I would like to say. Yeah, female Zhongli, exactly. But now, when we move down to this next tier, I actually have an issue with one thing in this tier down here. Now, last patch I said that, you know, Nicole would be on the same level. Sure, I actually disagree with that now. I think that she brings so much more to the team than Nicole can bring. That constitutes a full tier above of what she can do, right? But there is one person that I disagree with here. I actually disagree with Soukaku being here. Me personally, guys, the reason I'm moving Soukaku down, while her buff is pretty massive, right? I feel like Caesar King just does that and so much more. And then on top of all that too, I feel like Soukaku is just kind of clunky. And what I mean by clunky, right, is you use her little 3 slashers or whatever, right? And then she has to put her thing down, and she just has a lot of on-field time, or a lot more on-field time than I personally would like. And the reason I don't like the amount of on-field time that she has, that means the less time that you have for your DPS to spend on a stunned enemy. Because while she's doing this full effect whenever you break the enemy shield, you're spending a lot more time just in that animation, so it gives you less time to do damage overall, right? So for that reason, I would be moving her down. Personally, I think Lucy is an absolute beast. I agree with her being moved up a tier. Lucy gives you an attack buff, and then she has minions on the field as well to do damage to the enemy too, so you're kind of getting some off-field damage with her. The way I see Lucy is like a buffer version of Burnice, kind of. Yeah, I mean, all she does is spin, right? I mean, like, the big thing with her, right, is she gives you a huge attack buff, right? And she helps a lot with ice-based teams, but I mean, if they're not ice-based teams, you're not really getting that help out. She can also help with pseudo break. The reason why I think that Nicole stands above her is because, first of all, the defense shred is massive. Secondly, her animation is so quick, you can literally get in and out just like that. And not to mention that the shield buff that you get with her, or at least from my experience anyways, maybe I'm playing her completely wrong and it's a skill issue, you have to time up the correct DPS with where you want the buff at, right? So my main gripe is chain attack, because you have the additional damage from the chain. You know, when you break and you get the additional damage bonus, that's where my issue comes in at, because you only have a limited time in that certain state, and the more time that your supports take, you know, doing their buff or whatever to the enemy, the less time your DPS have to do damage, which means you have less on-field damage time during that state for your DPS, which overall makes her a deterrent to me. On that's how I see it anyways. Whereas someone like Nicole, right? Nicole comes in, pop, and you're in immediately, right? Like, it's like that you're popping off her ability. Same thing with her too. It's a little bit longer on Lucy than it is Nicole, because she goes and swings her bat or whatever, but it's still a lot less time than what she is doing right here, right? So for that fact, I would be moving her down into this tier down below here. People skip chain. It depends on who you're doing too, because you have to keep in mind, you have to time her ability up to get the buff off too. It's not someone like Caesar King, right, where Caesar King gives a shield and whoever has the shield gets the buff. So you're going to be having to use her regardless at some point to get the buff off, which ultimately results in a loss of damage. Whether you use her in a chain or not, you have to swap from her and then have a quick assist come in with the person you want to do damage with. Well, maybe for that team, sure, but that's if she's only niched out to one team that she can do that with, it's kind of ass, no? Like, it's not as good as someone else you can do, right? Like, Nicole can help out every team essentially, because she pops in real quick and does a shot. With her, you have to time it up properly with your DPS, and if you're not running a team with a designated breaker, aka I can give you an example right here, like a team with Soukaku, Grace, and Anton, right? That's what I mainly use my Soukaku on. It was Soukaku, Grace, and Anton before I had Rena, right? Like, the timing sometimes gets wonky, and sometimes the quick assist wants to shoot in with her. So that means if you shoot in with Grace here, then you're putting that 1,000 attack buff on Grace versus the 1,000 attack buff on Anton to get the reprocs off with Anton, which is not very good. So I'm saying overall, she's a bit clunkier to play, and that's why I'd be moving her down this tier. Same thing can be said with him too. You still have to time it up properly with him too as well. I mean, he gives a shield, so I do think he's a little bit better than Soukaku in a way, just because I feel like he's not as clunky and the shield is nice, but he is very niched out to the Anomaly class class, you can only play her in the Anomaly class, whereas with her, you can kind of play her in every class. I do think she still holds value. I still think she's really good. I just think she's clunkier than these other units. So, I mean, I would leave him here for now. I think he's fine there. Moving down to Arena, I think I'd move up Arena. With a little bit of playtime I have Arena, I think she's about on par with these characters here. So if I'm running a Jane Doe team, I would probably choose him over Arena. But if I'm running a Grace team, I'd probably still choose him over Seth, if you guys understand what I mean there. I think it depends on the team you're running. Like the type of Anomaly team. I think he outclasses her for sure in a Jane Doe-esque team. I think she's better on a Grace Anton team than what he is on a Grace Anton team. Because I think in the future, what we're going to go into a little bit of an Anomaly right here. I think we're going to have a couple types of Anomaly type damage. I think we're going to have those build-up-esque characters like someone like Jane Doe, right? Where they build up and then when they proc the build-up off, they do a fuck ton of damage, right? I think we're also going to have characters that are really proficient at building up, aka like Burnice here that builds up off turn, and then also Grace as well, which builds up off turn, and then maybe you could play into something like what would you say, like Disorder, right? Like a Disorder anomaly team. I think that's another route that they can take with that. And then a third route that you can take with that is someone like an Anton, right? Because Anton reprocs Anomaly, or reproc shock Anomaly anyways. So you could probably have teams with reprockers as well, right? And I think each of these characters, or Rena and him, play their own separate roles in those teams. I do feel like Rena can play a better role in those reproc teams than Seth can play, but Seth does provide a really big buff as well. So, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, me personally, I think I would put them on the same level for now until we see more of the Anomaly class and see what he can do in more Anomaly teams. And maybe he would move up in that case, but as of right now, I think I can see them both on the same level. Maybe him a little bit higher than her. And I guess Ben Biggerton, guys, okay, I asked chat, but chat never responded to me. I haven't played with Ben Biggerton, so I'm just going to leave him here for now just because I don't know his full extent of his power. Let me know in the comment section down below. Is Ben Biggerton better than what they're giving him at all the way at the bottom of the tier list at tier 2 here? Let me know. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. Now, let's move on to the stun category. Now, with stun category, I cannot wait for this shit, guys, because I do think Chingy is pretty good. I do think Chingy stands at the top. I do think overall she is better than Lycon, because Lycon gives more ice res, which is more niched out to, you know, someone like an Ellen, right, or another ice DPS in the game, whereas she kind of just gives you an overall debuff, which is a more, I guess, more balanced, you could say, right, versus like a more nicheified debuff that you're putting on the enemy, right? So for that, I would put her above him for right now. And then, I mean, I'm fine with these two choices right here. Okay, so here's my thought on this, guys. So I have used Anby the most. Anby has been my #1 breaker because I don't have Lycon and I don't have Chingy, right? I have Coleta and her, though. Coleta is very much more burst. I agree with that. That's what I was going to say. I think Coleta is very much more burst heavy, right? Like, she is good at breaking initial shields. Like, when she first comes out, I feel like she is just good at popping off like that and bursting it down, right? And then you have more on-field time with the DPS. Whereas with Anby, you need her more time on the field, and you also need more tech with her too, right? Because, well, I guess not really, because you're using, what, 2 attacks with her and then skill, and then you're using 3 attacks with her and then skill. So, I mean, I guess it's about the same amount of tech. Me, personally, I would probably move Anby down 1 tier. I feel like breaking, anyways, has been more consistent with Coleta for me than her. I could be coping with that. Maybe, I mean, that's just my thought process on it. I feel like using Coleta versus her, I feel like my Coleta has been more consistent, but I feel like when, after that initial break is up, and if you're not timing stuff properly, get the initial, like the increased days that she's going to be doing, then she kind of falls off. She kind of needs that skill active so she can get the increased days to actually pop off. Yeah, I guess you're right. You know what? I agree with you. I'll agree with you on this one. I can take that. I think they both stand on the same level. Let me know in the comment section down below, guys. What do you think? I mean, I think they're all pretty decent for now. I think that Coleta may be a little bit better than her. Maybe not a full tier of buffer, though. So, I mean, that's my kind of thought on that, is maybe Coleta a little bit better. What's her name? I don't even know. Anby, maybe a little bit worse. Okay, now, guys, let's move on to Anomaly DPS. Now, Anomaly DPS is a weird class, right? Because we have 2 different types of Anomaly type characters, right? Which, honestly, I think that Anton should be moved over here. He relies a lot on that reproc. Like, a lot of his damage, he moves up a lot in damage with these reprocs from Grace. And honestly, I think these reprockers should probably be moved over here to the Anomaly DPS. Not to say that he can't get a lot of damage out on his own with his own little kit or whatever, but I feel like his bread and butter is reprocking that electric DPS here, the electric shock on the enemy. So, I mean, I would probably move him over to this whole side regardless here, and if I were to move him onto the side, I'd probably put him on the same level here as well. I don't think that he would be any better than someone like a Grace is, right? I think he's only going to be as strong as what Grace would be, and I don't think Grace is going to be any stronger than what the reprocking person does as well. Obviously, there's other use cases within this tier, then maybe so, but let's start off with the top here first. I kind of went off on a tangent there. Burnice, yeah, I think Burnice stands up here. Burnice does some decent sub DPS damage because you're always basically procting off that afterburn effect or whatever it's called on the enemy at all times, and then you're building up anomaly proficiency the whole time as well. So if you're using her on a team with someone like a Jane Doe, right, then you can almost always get the assault proc off, and you can get it very efficiently instead of using someone like a Grace on the team to build up shock anomaly on the enemy and then swapping over to her. It's kind of just automatic with Jane Doe on the team. So I actually do agree with this 100%, and I do think there's a pretty big gap because I feel like Grace here is kind of what Burnice is. Honestly, I feel like Grace is what Burnice is. But Grace is just not as good because they're both kind of sub DPSs. You kind of pop them in and off the field. The big thing with her is that she is doing burn off field, while as she doesn't really do shock off field. You need more on field time with her to do the shock. And then her, bro, Piper kind of pops off, bro. I mean, I haven't used Piper before. I've only used Piper in like the training modes and stuff like that. But Piper just seems like she pops off. I actually really want to build Piper up and use her because I really don't have like a good physical DPS right now. I didn't get Jane Doe, and I'm kind of lacking on that. So she's probably going to be the next character I build. I just built my Lucy up and started using her, so I've been really enjoying that. So I really want to use her on a team with Piper here. So I think this is pretty. I think this list here is pretty good. Although I would be probably moving Anton over to this tier because he can play off that shock anomaly. Like I said, not to say that's his whole kit, but I feel like the bread and butter of his kit is reprocking that stuff off. Now, Zhuyan and Ellen Joe. Now, I'm curious to see what they said about this, right? Because they have little eyeballs next to their name. I'm curious to see what the changelog is saying here for them, right? Okay, this is what I want to see, guys. With newly boasted anomaly archetypes, raising the bar to the top in power, we're keeping an eye on all DPS categories, seeing how they perform. If pure DPS characters are too far behind anomaly sets, we may just adjust the entire category down to better reflect the in-game. Okay, I think I like that. That's why we've added the watch list for Ellen and Shiyu and Soukaku, but in reality, everyone's column should have it. Please send us feedback on anomaly DPS versus pure DPS. Personally, guys, okay, might be a hot take here. We're going to go back to the tier list here because I do think this does need a readjustment. I feel like Jane Doe just does so much fucking damage, especially with the addition of this now. It is absolutely insane. Now, me personally, I don't have Jane Doe, right? So I can't really attest to that fully. I can only attest to what I've seen on the internet of what she's done. I can attest to what Ellen does, and I can attest to what Zhuyan does. Personally, guys, I know before I said that Zhuyan's kind of down. I mean, with the addition of Chingy, which I don't have, I use Zhuyan free-to-play. I personally think that she's better than Ellen Joe, honestly, guys. I think that Ellen Joe probably moves down. I think Zhuyan's pretty solid where she's at right now with the current best-in-slot team that she has right now, right? I'm not saying that she's bad by any means, but I think Soukaku, being that she stays on the field for such a long time, it doesn't really give her as much of a chance to shine. On top of that, too, with the burst you're having to do here, you're having to make sure that she is kind of charged up with those 2 sprint attacks beforehand, too. So that's also kind of a downside because someone like Zhuyan, right, you can kind of get her whole burst out, and by the time she has to come back on the field and do more damage again, those bursts are usually charged back up, or she has her energy charged back up to get all of her little shotgun shells back. I feel like maybe, just maybe, Ellen's a little bit more inconsistent than Zhuyan here. So for that fact, I would probably be moving Ellen Joe down 1 tier and then keeping her up in tier 0 just because we haven't really got much support to ice. We've been getting a lot of support to anomaly sub DPS or anomaly DPS in general, and on top of that, guys, come on, we're getting another anomaly support in the next patch anyways. So maybe it is good to move this whole tier down if it is like Yanagi is like super OP, god awful, god almighty or something like that. I think that could be the case here. Now, Soldier 11, this is something that I was advocating for last time, is I think that Soldier 11 was better than Nekomata here, and I'm glad that Soldier 11's moved up to tier 1. That's absolutely what I agree with there. I think that Soldier 11 is better than Nekomata, maybe a little bit harder to play than Nekomata, but I do think overall that she is better than Nekomata. Now, Nekomata being on the same tier as these two, I think Nekomata is better than Billy. Personally, what I would do is I think I would probably move her down to another tier, move him down a tier here, and then probably keep her here, right? That's probably what I would do. I do think there is a gap between what Billy can do and what Nekomata could do. But, I mean, that's really all that I have to say about today's tier list, right? Now, where do I think Yanagi is going to go? Because we need to rate Yanagi here, right? And probably Lighter as well. If I were to rate Yanagi, right? She is a anomaly character. I think she'll probably sit somewhere in this tier here. I don't necessarily think she's going to be up here. I mean, she might be up here if she like brings like a lot of, maybe she will, right? It's early game. You know what? Fuck it, right? We're going to say she's up here because very early game. I don't think they would not release like a meta breaking unit or like a meta defining unit into the game right now. And then maybe she prepares her for something in 2.0 too. So maybe I put Yanagi here. Where do I think Lighter's going to go for stunners? Yo, I don't know how I feel about Lighter as a stunner. I'd probably maybe put him on the same level as Lycon. I mean, that's probably my thought here. I mean, I don't think he's going to be up to that of Chang'e. I think he's going to be more of a sub-DPS stunner. So I probably would put him in this tier right here. I think it really depends on what category they actually define him in. If they define him as a DPS, if they define him as a stunner, however they define him, I think that he probably sits here in this tier. Lighter does anyways. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I would love to hear what you guys think on this tier list here that we made up. Do you think I was copium? Do you think I was not copium? Let me know what you think. Anyways, gamers, that's going to do it for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. Later. Bye-bye.